It's a beautiful morning to be at Lan Su Chinese garden, and I'm with Justin. And Justin, it's just amazing to come out to the garden, and there's really some plants in bloom even at this time of year.
Yeah, it's surprising to see some of our plants in bloom as early as February, March, but we've had some really cold weather. But it's not unusual for our climate to have plants such as Edgeworthia and Camellia in bloom this early.
And there is a beautiful Edgeworthia right behind us, so tell us about that plant.
So this is Edgeworthia chrysantha, a species also known as papyrifera. It's been cultivated in Chinese gardens for over 1,000 years, not only because of its wonderful fragrance, it's related to the Daphne, but also the stems and the bark are used for paper.
And in our own gardens, where would we site it?
I would site it in a fairly protected spot, part shade to part sun. They do like a little bit of sun, but not in a full sun situation.
Just beautiful. And I know there's some other blooming plants in the garden, so let's go over there.
All right.
So Justin, walking over to this area, we passed the pond and it's kind of iced over, but then there's plants blooming. So kind of explain that.
Well, as you know, we can have like temperatures down into the 20s, but in the Northwest you will still see bloom on our winter blooming and spring blooming plants. And I think too, having them in a sort of a protected spot is usually a good idea for some of the winter blooming plants. Like this Daphne, for instance, Daphne odora areomarginata, and it's in a fairly protected spot. It gets a nice deal of sun, but it's also protected by this tall pine on one side of us and by the garden wall on the other. So they usually sail through pretty well in our cold weather. If you have like a young Daphne though, like that you've just planted say in the fall, it is a good idea to wrap a little bit of frost cloth around it to protect it, because younger plants typically could succumb to this kind of weather.
True. And then right across the pathway there's some flowering quince in two colors actually.
Yes, so we have flowering quince as Canomeles japonica contorta, which is blooming kind of a whitish pink right now, and also Canomeles japonica Atsuya hamada, and that has a nice deep dark, almost like wine red flower color.
Beautiful. And those will take a little bit more sun?
Those are going to take a little bit more sun, and those are really good in the cut stems for flower arranging, and you see them depicted in Chinese art going back hundreds of years, so they're a favorite for the Chinese as well, and they also represent the new year and the spring to come.
Oh, very nice. And there's some more plants. We're just going to go to one more space, so let's go over there.
All right.
Well, now we're in the Scholars Courtyard with so many beautiful blooming plants, and before we talk about this camellia, let's talk about the plums.
So the plums are actually one of my favorite plants of all time.
Beautiful.
And these are Prunus mume, which is known as a Chinese plum. However, they're more technically an apricot. But they will bloom as early as December some years. Ours started blooming in January, and they'll be blooming all the way through March. And they're one of the most important plants in Chinese culture, actually. So they represent some of our best qualities as humans, such as integrity, longevity, and they also are the harbinger of Chinese New Year, bringing in the spring.
And they're mirrored right into the walkways here. There's plums into the rocks.
That's right. So the plum blossoms is what this represents. Is they fall onto the ice and crack it, meaning that winter is coming to a close.
Yay.
And so there's hope for warmer weather.
And then what about this camellia? It's in full bloom right now.
Yeah, this is an incredible camellia. This is Camellia japonica. The varietal is Drama Girl. And this also has been in bloom for a while. And the nice thing about camellias is that they will bloom for a long period of time. So even if your camellia has started to bloom in February or March, it could run as far as April or May even in some instances. So if it hasn't quite opened up yet, which in some areas of Portland, the Portland area, they're yet to open. Just give it a week or two and you'll start to see those emerge. But they are one of the most just dramatic flowering plants that we have.
Very much. And you are really highlighting them in just a few short weeks.
Yes, that's right. So every year we have a camellia flower display and at the end of March. And and so we'll be highlighting many varieties of camellias, and they come in the form of stems and flowers, and we do an arrangement in some of our halls here.
And then in April, there's something else going on.
In April, we're having something unique. It's called a Scholars Rock exhibit. And Scholars Rocks is what they are small rocks that are usually about a foot tall that are naturally occurring, but they carve wood pedestals for these rocks, and that the scholars, the literati back in the Ming Dynasty would use as inspiration for poetry or calligraphy or many of the Chinese arts.
Wow. Yeah. You know, there's something always interesting going on here and something always in bloom. So if nothing is blooming out quite by your house, it's wonderful to come down to Lan Su and see all the beauty down here. Just go to the website and you can find out all the information about what's going on down here. Thanks so much, Justin. It's lovely.
Thank you, Judy.